Okay, this is gonna be my longer video on Tales from the Gas Station Book 1. I'm still working on Tales from the Gas Station Book 2, but I just wanted to give my first kind of thoughts. I know I did a small video, but I did take notes while I was reading it, so these are more of like the things that I was thinking of. First of all, it's by Jack Townsend, who's done a bunch of other books, so I'm probably gonna read more. The version that I was consuming was the audiobook. And amusingly enough, the audiobook is narrated by Mr. Creepypasta. So if you know him, you know that at least those of us who grew up listening to Mr. Creepypasta, like his voice is really nostalgic and like really, it's unique. So like I wouldn't confuse his voice with anyone else. Like they didn't even have to say like narrated by Mr. Creepypasta. Like I know. I said this in my smaller video, but it reminds me a lot of Welcome to Night Vale and Station 4, I think. So I'm happy to do videos on them too because I grew up listening to them as well. But the Welcome to Night Vale is a podcast about a small town, and you kind of follow the guy who runs the radio station. And it's all about how like there's a bunch of mysterious goings on. There's like cohesive organizations that exist in the town. There's reoccurring characters. There's a weird glow cloud that is not malicious, but it just kind of hovers and people worship it. All hail the great glow cloud. But then there's also Station 4, which is the other thing it reminded me of, which is like, I can't remember exactly how it starts, but someone joins a watch group, like a fire watch, and they're up in a tower watching this forest, and there's like this mysterious mist that's kind of weird, and it comes in and it brings like kind of mysterious things with it. There's a bird that has a very human eye that like makes a nest in the tower. There's a bunch of stuff like that where it's just like day after day of kind of like not what would be boring, but like finding something weird in the boring, you know? Like you're just doing your job at a radio station, or you're just doing your job at a fire watch tower, and then one day something happens, or one day you encounter something strange, like all of that stuff. So I feel like this Tales from the Gas Station series falls into that genre of what normalizing the abnormal. That's the way I put it. Also, it's done in log entry chapters, so it's like sometimes it feels like he's just talking to you, and sometimes it feels like you're reading his journal. And he's assigned the journal by a doctor, so it's like explained why he's keeping the record. It kind of is like found footage movies where like you get the first person handheld camera, like, but it's like shaky and like there's imperfections in the audio and visual. It's all part of the same sphere, I think. But it is in the first person voice of this gas station employee who just goes about his day-to-day life. And part of why I like it so much is because he is so normal, but he's also like very blasé about everything. Like someone comes in like bleeding from a gunshot wound and he's just like, okay, I'll call an ambulance. You know, he's not like panicked. He's just kind of like, okay. But it's the same thing with like if someone who's kind of like a monster walks in and he's just like, this again. Or like the cult that lives in the woods, he's just kind of like, okay, how can I help you? Are you gonna buy something, or are you just here to talk? Because if you're just here to talk, I want you to leave. And you know, it's very much like the disgruntled, socially awkward gas station employee that's like used to dealing with all of this weird stuff. It has a very fairy tale vibe, in that like someone's telling you a story, but it's also kind of like, it's as if all of the fairy tales are real. I don't know which part exactly. I guess it's like the there's a part at the end with like mushrooms that look like a human, and that one kind of reminded me of a fairy tale vibe. It's like a dark fairy tale vibe. So also, the main character is dying. It's not really a spoiler. And also, I'm not sure if it's true, which might be more of a spoiler. But he thinks he's dying, at least. And the reason why is because he has some sort of degenerative disease, but also some sort of insomnia. So he can't sleep, which means that he's a night shift gas station employee, which means that it's even more funny when people come in like being crazy. But his doctors keep thinking that he's gonna die any second, but he's persisted for like over a year after he was supposed to die or something. So I'm trying to think of how it, like, okay, yes, he might be dying, but there's also people who come in and who are like, you're not dying. And then he's like, huh? And then there's like these government organizations, and he's being studied by this doctor who prescribed him the logbook. But it's kind of confusing whether or not he's actually dying. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal if he is or isn't. It's just kind of another one of those mysterious government things which feeds into all of like the weird goings on around town. Humor is very good with horror, and I feel like this book really toes the line between it. It's not so humorous that it's funny, like I wouldn't call it a comedic book, but I'd say the humor is like a good insertion into the things that need it. There's one point in which there's like an interior reference. So as I said, it's narrated by Mr. Creepypasta, but there's like one part where they're talking about how the log, so he turned his log book into a blog, and people are like copying it, people are sharing it, people are using it for writing entries, but he's like so isolated in his little town, in his little gas station, that he doesn't know that this is happening. So there's this one point where they're talking about copy pastas, and that his work fits very specifically into the creepy copy pasta, and they say something like, oh, shouldn't there be like a specific word for that? Like, shouldn't there be a more like streamlined term for it? And kind of the entire audience knows that the word for it is creepypasta. And the fact that it's being narrated by Mr. Creepypasta, it was just like so many layers of joke, but like internal joke, like to the community of people who read this kind of thing. Anyway, I loved it. I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a kind of lighthearted, easy read. I wouldn't say anything is too overtly gory or overtly scary. I think that it does a really good job of keeping it pretty surface level, even with some like heavier content. Also, there is like that kind of absurdism, surrealism. So I think it would be pretty much open to anyone who is interested in reading it. If you are a creepypasta fan, if you're a horror fan, if you're a comedic horror fan, I would specifically recommend this book. To people who are chronically online, it might be very funny. Also to those who have listened to Welcome to Night Vale before, this is definitely for you. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I will be back with a video on book 2 because it's already really good. I mean, it's just a continuation of the first book, but it doesn't feel like it's forced. You know, it feels like it's just a reasonable continuation.